Hello and welcome to the show. On this week's episode, we have life and business coach Jessica McKinley. She is also the host of the What's Happyning with Jess podcast. She's also a client of mine and we work together through her launch. Jessica's business, her brand, everything she does is about channeling your emotions because business and podcasting aren't personal, right? But they are emotional. And I feel a lot of emotions. I did in this episode with her for sure. And so if your emotions are kind of up and down with your podcast, this episode will be so helpful to you. It really was for me. And I'd love to know what you think about it. Jess, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much. It took us mompreneurs quite a bit of finagling to make this happen. And we've done it. I'm so proud.
So you are calling in from where?
New
right
York.
Now? New York.
From Long Island, New York.
Okay. Got it. And I'm in my dad's house in upstate New York near Albany.
Oh, yeah. You said you were going to be in New York. That's so fun. Yeah, no, I'm in Long Island. I'm at in my ex-husband's office as we are figuring out what to do with my workspace in COVID while our kid is in preschool. So
yeah, how's it going?
All of the normal emotions, and we're going to be talking a lot about emotions on the podcast, but all the normal emotions for any person, even as a life coach with all of the tools, it doesn't eliminate me or, excuse me from the 50-50 emotional state that is life. 50% of the time it's going to be amazing and 50% of the time it's going to suck. And so putting him back in school after we had the virtual was totally bittersweet. Bitter in that, we just didn't know what's going to happen, and sweet in that I got some sanity back and am able to get a little bit more of a schedule as a business owner. And truthfully, my son's school, it's a private Spanish immersion school. Since the weather has been actually amazing in New York, they have been spending a lot of the time outside. They are required, even as 3-year-olds, to wear masks the whole time, which is kind of crazy, but he's been amazingly really receptive to it. They actually the kids are really great with it. It's a very small school. There's max on a day. There's 8 kids. And so it's been really great. And he loves it. And his Spanish had kind of tanked after he was out of school for, 6 months or so. And so now it's been great having him back.
Crazy. I know. Well, I mean, it must be nice to have him in school with other kids, but the mask thing but it gives you some time back. So I guess there's pros and cons with everything. My son is 2.5 and I would love for him to be in preschool, but we took him out because we had a little girl about 3 months ago. And so I just was worried about him being in daycare with the new baby, but I think we're at a place where I would really like to put him back in.
Ready to think about it again. I know, there's not, I think giving myself, and definitely you can borrow this thought, but the grace to know that there really is no right or wrong answer here. And I think that for a lot of people, when there is no right answer, we're not really sure how to make a decision. And it kind of puts us in this paralyzed state of just I'll just wait until either the decision is somehow made for me or something disastrous happens where I'm forced into a situation to put them back in school out of no necessity. And I think it's such a good skill to practice to make a decision in advance and give yourself the grace to know there's no right or wrong answer. So knowing that, what would I decide?
I love that. That's great, especially just for podcasters. Podcasting is kind of the wild, wild west. So guys know that there is no right answer when it comes to producing your podcast. You will figure yourself out on your way through it. So just do it and keep going. And Jess and I actually met because she is the host of the What's Happyning, am I saying it correctly? What's Happyning with Jess podcast. Yes, it's Happyning. I'm awesome. That's what I'm going to tell myself.
Yeah, no, it's okay. Podcast. It's not a word. And if you try and search that, you will get autocorrected a million times to the actual word happening instead of HAPPYNING. So you might just have to search it through my name.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And she's also a life coach. And one of my clients had put us in touch with each other, and we worked a little bit on your launch together. And how has it been going? How is your podcasting journey going?
Yeah, I mean, I credit you so much with me getting it off the ground. It's probably a year from the time that I bought my equipment and was like all in, like gonna do this, to the time that I actually launched. I can't even believe how much stalling went on because of my thoughts about technology and being horrible at it. Yeah, the first couple of months were a nightmare of like Audacity working and then Audacity not working. And then I was using GarageBand and then that wasn't working. And so just the technical stuff, but sitting here now talking about it, it's kind of crazy. It used to take me like, I mean, hours. It would be like a full section of my day to edit and format the podcast. And now I usually do it in between the time that my son goes to bed and like I sit down to watch a movie with my boyfriend. And so it is, it's just give yourself, if you're in the beginning of this podcasting journey, listening, first of all, get yourself a Christine in your back pocket. And second of all, once you have all those tools that she gives you, just like give yourself permission to fail a lot in the beginning and go through that just necessary learning curve of feeling like a beginner, which for a lot of us podcasters, we're podcasting because we're kind of experts in something. So we don't really identify or maybe love that feeling of being a beginner. And it's a good experience to continue to have over and over again, right? To remind ourselves that before we were an expert in whatever we're podcasting about, we were a beginner at that too. And just like anything, you are capable of learning it. So it's become more efficient. And now that I kind of know how I like things and what I want, I'm in a better place where I think I'm soon going to be hiring an assistant to kind of do some of that formatting stuff. So
awesome. So with your podcast, because I remember when we were originally talking about it, you were hoping to connect with your clients more and it to perhaps even a lead magnet for you. Has it turned into that?
Yeah. So I have had one client that I completely didn't know at all, that was out on the West Coast, and that was listening to the podcast within like, I think maybe like 15 episodes, set up a mini session just through my recommendation of the outro and booked as a one-on-one client, which was such a cool experience. And then I had another client that booked, which at first I didn't think was because of the podcast, but she was recommended through a Facebook group. And when we really traced it back, it was someone that I don't know still to this day that recommended that she sign on with me because they were a listener of the podcast in London. Mm-hmm. And now she is a client of mine. So I have two clients that live thousands of miles in either direction of me here in New York, and that are now people that, I speak to on a weekly basis, an hour every week. And that is all thanks to me taking this leap on the podcast. Definitely those are the lead magnet things. And as far as, connecting with my clients, I've had two of my clients as guests on the podcast, which has been really fun. And for them too, I think it's been a good like milestone reflection point on all of the things that they've accomplished in our coaching together. Just to give you guys a background, I am a business coach and a life coach. Yeah. So my podcast is about how business isn't personal, but it is emotional. And so this is just specifically, while I do all sorts of coaching, both mindset and, hard tools, scheduling, budgeting, all of those things with my clients, what I wanted to talk about on the podcast was this like weird fallacy that like feelings is not something that is a part of business. And I think that it sets a lot of us up for failure, and there's nowhere for us to really go when we do, God bless you, when we do have some sort of emotion come up, whether it be something like overwhelm or, fear or self-doubt, to something as like dramatic as, like guilt or self, or what's the word? Like self-loathing. I mean, there's so many worry, there's so many emotions that we have when it comes to just specifics in taking action on our business that get in the way of us taking action consistently. And you can have the perfect systems and plans and tools for your business, and you're not taking that action consistently because we take all of our action from an emotion, right? So it has been fun to launch through that.
So I love this because all of the things that it sounds like you deal with your clients, speaking to the emotions, I think are all feelings that podcasters have, things that stop them, that slow them down, that make them quit podcasting, is the self-doubt, the self-loathing, the feelings like you're not good enough, or the comparison. Like there's so many different reasons people might quit or maybe not even start because of how they're feeling, when it might not actually be the best thing for them or their business. So, I mean, can we dive into that?
Yeah, I think especially when you said the word quit, I think that I deal with this with my clients a lot, where some of them get to these points in emotional states where they're literally on the verge of quitting their entire business, whatever it may be, or in this case, right, like quitting something like a podcast because they're confused about where that emotion is coming from. Like we don't study emotions really. I just did an email to my email people. If you guys aren't on Friday Feels, get on that. You can, you'll see all the details. I'm sure Christine will put it in the bio, but I was talking about this book that I was reading to my son that I promptly threw out after reading it to him, which is called Glad Monster, Sad Monster by Ed Emberley. And you guys might own this book. And if you do, throw it out. It'll cause you a lot less heartbreak down the line for your kids. But I think one of the reasons that we're so confused about where our emotions come from is because of what we're taught when we're kids. And this book, seemingly so innocent, and I bet you would have no clue if like you were to read it and not be actively coaching on emotions like I am every day. You'd just be like, oh, what a cute book, right? He had another book that was my favorite book as a child called Go Away Big Green Monster. So I saw this and my mom bought it and I was like so excited. The book starts and it's like the blue monster says that like losing his balloon and when it rains and these four circumstances make him feel sad. What makes you feel sad? And then it prompts the kid to think of a circumstance that makes them feel sad. Now, this is the exact problem that is causing podcasters to want to quit, because they think it's the podcast that is causing their emotion of stress, of not good enough, of overwhelm, whatever it is. They don't understand that there's something between a circumstance like raining on a day of a parade or, editing a podcast and your emotional state. And that thing is our thoughts. This sounds super basic, but it's such a huge nuance to be aware of and distinguishment. Is that a word? It's really important to distinguish where these emotions are coming from, right? So if you, let's say, like I looked to my son and after I was like, I said, does rain make you sad? And he goes, yes. And I was like, I knew he was just trying to be a good student. He was trying to get the answer right. But the truth is that I know that when it's raining, my son's like, puddles, like, let's go. Like he loves to put on his boots and like he gets to hold the umbrella. He loves to like be in charge of like anything that makes him feel like he's older than he is. He's 3. And so I was like, really? Does it? Because I thought we get to do puddles and you get to hold the umbrella, remember? And he goes, oh yeah, rain makes me glad. And I was like, no, rain, sweetheart, like doesn't make you feel anything. It can rain and one day you can feel sad about it because you're thinking, oh, I wish it wasn't raining right now. It shouldn't be raining right now. And that arguing with reality makes you feel sad, right? Or you could see the rain and you could be thinking about puddles and you could feel totally pumped, right? And you are totally in control. So the reason this is important when you're talking to podcasters is because if we don't understand that we're creating our own stress, we feel completely powerless, and we start to want to avoid the thing that we think is causing the emotion, instead of going to the source and saying, what am I thinking about this that's causing me so much stress? And when I realized, like in the case of podcasting in the beginning, was I was thinking that I'm an expert. I shouldn't be struggling so hard with this technology of editing this in the beginning. And then when I looked at that thought and I really like wrote down that thought, I was like, why do I think that I shouldn't be struggling with something that I've never done before, or that I'm brand new at, and that I'm only why do I think that I should be really quick? What if this is exactly how long it should take for a very successful podcaster to edit their podcast the first month in their business, and even the second month in their business? What if it should take me a full year to get 1,000 podcast downloads in one day? And if I just, and how do I know that it should happen? Because it is happening. And the truth is that when we argue with reality, we're always going to create a feeling of suffering, but that's on us. So we get to decide how we want to think about our interactions with the podcast, about what's happening with our viewers and all of those things. Now, it doesn't mean you just ignore it and people are like, well, I don't want to be delusional. I want to recognize if this isn't working for me. Yeah, okay. But you can think about it in a way that is productive for you, instead of puts you in a place where you have to quit, right? So a better thought, instead of thinking, oh, I suck at this, I only have, 50 downloads this month or whatever it is, you can think about it and say, oh, what might be a way that I can increase my 50 downloads? Well, I could probably listen to Christine's podcast and get 10 ideas, write them down, and do 5 of them this week, schedule them in, right? Instead of being like looking at the circumstances and letting them determine our results, we take responsibility for our thoughts about the circumstances, and then that thought will set us up to feel a certain way, which will drive our action, which will produce the results. Our circumstances do not equal the results. It's like with the election that's going on right now, I keep telling all of my clients, the person that's in the White House is just a circumstance. I'm not saying it's not going to create new circumstances. It will. And then you'll get to decide what to think from that place, and you'll get to decide how you want to show up. Do you want to affect change from the ground up? How can your business be a job creator, and how can you contribute to the economy, and how can you inspire your community, right? And that is your responsibility to create your results in 2021, no matter who got elected and whether you liked it or not.
Jess, I love your mindset so much. And I remember when we were first working together, I was just like, this girl is going to have an amazing podcast, because your personality is just insane. Like, it's just like sparking from the room you're in. Yes, you're welcome. I just love it so much. I also am an avid follower of your Insta stories. It like makes me happy to watch you on Insta stories. So, and something I saw you were
I'm
doing.
so glad, because sometimes I really just have no clue whether or not I'm like making a complete fool of myself on my Instagram, because you see me, like sometimes I'm just being silly with my son, and I tend to record like a lot of things when I'm pre-working out or if I've had a drink, and right after sessions I just get my thoughts out there, because we're moms, right? We don't have time to like plan every single thing that we're going to do. We just got to do it, make it happen from our dungeons. And yeah. And so I'm glad to hear that feedback.
I love your Insta stories, because I think that with like a business that you have and with a podcast that you have that's all about like being happy and feelings and emotions, that maybe people might think that you don't ever feel sad or feel down or feel like you're struggling. But that's not the case. And the other day you were talking about how you woke up feeling really down, and then you're like, I'm going to have a $5,000 day. I was like, what the heck? How is she going to do that? Was this yesterday?
That was yesterday. Yeah, I literally today, just before my call that was right before this, I posted the updates on what actually happened. So I didn't actually make the full 5K, but 4 amazing things did happen from like just putting myself in that zone and putting that in my mindset. Yeah. And I think it's important for me to show people the 50-50, like that negative 50%, because like, it's not, emotions aren't something that happen to you. Like, they are something that happen when we choose a certain thought. And now the truth is, when I say, why would you choose that thought to a client? Like, their answer is like, I didn't choose that thought, right? Like, I just believe it's our subconscious, right? And that's important for you to know. Your subconscious exists, but you can kind of watch your subconscious, acknowledge it, and then talk to yourself more than you listen to your brain. And that's what I had done that day. Like, I woke up and I was like, whoa, like, my business is going to crumble. I'm not going to hit my goals. The math isn't there. What's happening? Like, I just could see my thoughts, like, and none of them, I always say, like, your thoughts are like, when your thoughts are sent to you from your subconscious, it's like the home screen, lock screen of your phone. It's like, for example, I think right now, yeah, you can see I have all these, wait, you can't see. I have all these like little notifications, right? Like,
Okay.
you can't see it.
I believe.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I see
The
them.
notification screen. And we get to choose like whether I want to click in and believe that thought and like buy into it, or whether we would just like swipe left on that thought and just like, no, thank you today. And I could just see all these thoughts and I was like, I don't want any of these. What is happening? My brain is giving me the lowest quality thoughts this morning, and it's not going to create a good results this day. So I was just like, what can I do to like get out of this? And I was just like, what would be like, seems so impossible to me that it would require all of my focus and I wouldn't have time to entertain these other thoughts in order to hit this goal. And so I was just like, what if I just made $5,000 today? Like, not by the end of the month. And so anyway, I ended up being able to, I inspired another one of my clients to do a 1-day goal, and she hit her goal. So that was really fun, ripple effect. And then I had another client who decided to make her year-end goal public. And she was talking about all of the shame and weirdness that she had about it being a financial goal. And it sparked this amazing conversation within my Hapster community of how important it is for women to talk about money and not have shame or weirdness and bring it up and like talk about making money and not, it's like when we talk about a money goal, we're like, but I also care about people and puppies and sunshine. It's like, what does that have to do with anything? Like, just because you want to make a lot of money doesn't mean that you don't also care about people and the clients. Like, of course I do. And I don't have any weirdness about that because I know my clients can feel how much I care about them and their goals. So then when I talk about money, it's just like another awesome thing that I love. Right. And so that came from it too. And then third, I ended up thinking, oh, well, what if I could make the money in a way that wasn't clients? Like, how else? And I just sent an email to negotiate with my ex-landlord because I broke my lease recently to move into a new place, and it was going to be like a $5,000 fee. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's $5,000 right there. So I sent an email. She didn't respond yet, but I really think I have a good case for not paying it. And then also the fourth thing that happened was that I started tons of really new, amazing conversations with people that I know will be signing on within the next days, weeks, months. So, and I wouldn't have done all of that in that one day if I didn't have this goal. So really fun.
Awesome.
That was a tangent.
Yeah. Well, I just, I feel like, so I'm just going to back up a little bit. I was an athlete in college. And I feel like being an athlete and succeeding as an athlete was more about mindset than it was working out. And it was, and I feel like I've taken like the things that I've learned about mindset and attitude, and how attitude is something that you can control, and like your mind is something that you can like control what you put in and take out, when there's so much in your life that you can't control. So if you really focus on just like you and what you're thinking and what you're doing and what you can do today to feel better, think better, that's going to have a bigger effect on like any outcome. And I'm so glad that I was an athlete, because I learned that through athletics, and then like have used it in my journalism career. And every time like a big old like wallop, like, you know, hit me in the face, or I like got a punch in the gut figuratively, and I was taken out in a way, I always like rely on what I can control. And I feel like mindset and attitude is so much of that. But still, there's that subconscious. I'd love to dive into more about like what our subconscious does without us knowing it. And how
Yeah,
it
I
can
think
feed
that,
us evil thoughts about ourselves that might like make us want to take a left turn when we should turn right.
yeah, I think that there are a couple of like one sentence beliefs that I have that are so helpful in combating that. And one of those is that your thoughts aren't true. And I think that when I think something, especially let's go beyond thinking something like a new thought or whatever, but like a belief, when I believe something, my brain just is like, if this is true and it's a fact. And I think part of my main job as a coach of business owners is to help them separate out the facts of their life and what's happening from their story about it and their thoughts about it. And when we come to a session, you know, it's like, how's this week? What went on? And they're kind of telling me their story. And then they pause and I'm like, okay, so like, let's reflect back. This is what happened. And this is what you think about it. And separating that out and being able to see like, whoa, any thought is totally optional and also not true. Like, even though it might feel true, we have to use an example. So, do you want to give me an example
Oh,
of
I was
something
like,
that's been
I've got
going on?
examples for you.
Yeah,
So
let's do it.
yesterday I had this feeling like as I was going to sleep at night, I had a bunch of these awful thoughts. And my husband had to like talk
Mm-hmm.
me out of it. Thank God he's a wonderful person. And I feel like he's almost like my Jess, but he's probably not as good.
Oh no,
um,
nervous.
but
Hit
he
me.
tries. Oh, I still see you. Uh-oh.
Okay. I can hear you now.
Okay.
Okay, you're back.
So last night, some thoughts that came my way was, um, I'm not good enough. This isn't moving fast enough. I'm never going to be able to reach my goals. There are too many, like my mind's going in too many directions when really I should be focusing in a straight line. And because I'm not focusing in a straight line, like from here to my goal, then I'm not going to achieve it. And I'm just, why am I even doing this? Like, what's the point? I should just quit. So like I had this like weird like brain bubble yesterday, and then anyway, I'll leave. What would you say to that? And I'll share with you what we ended up doing.
Yeah. So basically, one of the things that I teach, I am a life coach school certified coach. And the model that I use for any listeners, that some people listen to that podcast by Brooke Castillo. So you might be familiar, but if you're not, the model is that your circumstances trigger your thoughts create your feelings drive your actions, and your actions produce your results. And what you gave me so far was just all thoughts. So in order to put it in context to make it very powerful for you to see, like I would have to understand what was like one fact that happened that was causing you to feel this. Like, did you look at your numbers? Did you have a money goal? Did you tell
So
me?
I recently, things have been going okay. Like I brought on new clients, and like my company is doing well enough for me to have hired a marketing company to help me redo some stuff. So my journalism is like my thing. I get that. And that's what I try to teach to people. Um, Marketing I understand, but I'm not super good at it. So I brought on this company to help me with it because I think that if you are not good at something, reach out to other people, let them help you.
Yes.
And so I brought on these people, and I was looking at what they created, and I mean they're a wonderful group of like women too, and I love that. But I just was like, oh, I don't think this speaks directly to me. It doesn't feel like me. Like, was this just like an awful idea to have actually hired this company? Was I like a little too ballsy by hiring them? Uh, um, because I'm not sure if they completely got who I am by like creating this
Mm-hmm.
content, and is this content going to represent me in a way that I don't really want to be represented? And instead of actually like following up with them or having a conversation with them, I went on that spiral instead.
Sure. Okay. So the circumstance was that they presented you with like their
Content. Yes. They made
content,
something
right?
for me. They gave it to me. They redid my website, and they started like creating some social media content. And I was like, and I just wasn't so sure about some stuff. And
Yeah. Okay. So amazing. So the thing was that they created something and you had thoughts about it, right? Lots of thoughts. Usually it's never just one thought, but most amazing part about this thought work and like becoming aware of your subconscious is that it doesn't even really matter which thought you focus on. We just want to find the thought that creates an emotion that either I want and I want to recreate, or I don't want and I want to like analyze the thought and whether I want to keep that thought that's creating that feeling, right? Thoughts create feelings, and feelings are just a vibration in our body. But the most amazing thing to know about feelings is that every single thing that we do, we're doing to either feel a positive emotion or avoid feeling a negative emotion. And also the second most important thing to know about feelings is that it's where we take all of our action from. So like if we want to have a business, most people come to me being like, tell me what to do to make all of this money or get all these clients, right? And I'm like, yes, I can tell you what to do and we will get to that point, but like you will not be able to take the action that you need to take time and time again, like you said, to like troubleshoot or to to continuously follow up with people or to tell the truth to people that you employ. You will not be able to do that unless you have the proper feeling. And usually that feeling that you need to feel is in get to, which I think most people don't understand, is just neutral. Like you don't have to feel like amazing about everything to take action. It's like you saw this presentation and you thought, I don't know if they really get me. And then you started having other thoughts. So the thought that you had that I would pick out and just put into this model is that, was it a mistake for me to make this investment right now? Now that thought makes you feel what? When you think it was a mistake to spend this money.
It makes me feel scared and insecure and vulnerable.
Yeah, maybe some self-doubt thrown in there because you're like, how do I know when I should make these decisions, or like, how can I trust myself, or any of that. And when you feel that, what action or inaction did you take?
I think I just started beating up on myself,
Mm-hmm.
and I tried to like snap myself out of it because it was like bedtime and I was reading my like son books to bed and I was nursing my
Mm-hmm.
daughter, and I was just trying to be like, this is what matters. This is what matters. This is what matters. Like not
Mm-hmm.
what my mind is telling me. This is what matters. And like when I think about, and that helped me to think like, okay, this is what matters. This is good. Like this makes me feel good. I'm at my like dad's house right now, and we're at my dad's house right now because of this. And so it kind of got to a point where I was like, okay, wait, we're doing good. We're doing okay. Like this is uncomfortable because it's new and scary and I can't do everything and I want to do everything. And I am now learning that if I want to take this next step and grow more in my business, I do need to be okay with like like me not doing everything. And I think it became like a little bit of a control freakiness in myself that I was like, I have to let go of this to allow for these
Sure.
other things
So
to grow. And I also need to communicate to the people instead of just
right. So
feeling like I'm
notice
making
that like,
mistakes. Okay.
yes, that one feeling of self-doubt led to you beating yourself up and also not following up. Right. So those are the
Yeah.
actions that led to. And then the result was usually the thought is true. It's like it was a mistake to hire these people. And then you don't follow up and change it. And then the result is that it ends up like being a mistake because you didn't get the result that you wanted because you're not willing to continue to communicate with
Grow.
them
Yeah.
what changes need to be made. Right. So then, yeah, like it's, you just prove your thought true. Always is the result. When you have a thought, it ends up in your result line, which is really fun to know too, because like we're just out there taking action. Our brain is taking action, looking to just prove itself true. It would rather you not have a crisis of doubting your own thoughts and doubting your brain than it would you get the result that you want to get. which is like frightening knowledge to know, because you're like, oh my gosh, like that's why I self-sabotage so much, is because my brain just wants to be right. It has like a complex where it like cannot be wrong, right? And so that's all happening subconsciously, but you got into a conscious place kind of in the middle of the beating yourself up, which is like, this is not productive. And you had a new thought, and that set out a new model, which was like, this is what matters. And you had that thought, and you felt kind of like maybe a little more centered, a little more calm, a little more focused. And then that caused you to be able to be present as a mom. And the truth is that reinforced that thought, that is like, being a mom matters and you're good at that. Right. And that's what that model created in that moment, was you were able to like do what you needed to do as a mom because you had the right thoughts. When we can't do what we need to do, it's because we're thinking, I can't do this. I don't know how to do this. Right. And then it's proven true. That's why I thought it was so important to set that goal. Cause I was like, all of these thoughts of scarcity, they're creating results right now for me. And I don't want those results. So I choose to not have these thoughts. Right. And so what I would ask you when you were saying these thoughts is like, was it a mistake to hire these companies or roll out? I would just ask you, what do you think that's going to create for you? And is that what you want to be true? And obviously, no, right? You don't want it to have been a mistake. So it's like, you hired them. That's the fact. They presented you with some information that is not what you want to present. And you get to think whatever you want about that. Like, I would think like, oh, this is a working relationship. It's going to take some back and forth. It's really important that I would kind of question, like, what did I maybe leave out, or in terms of my personality or what I want to get across that this has given me the opportunity to present right now, that before I didn't even think to mention. But now I'm like, now that I see that, I see how you might have thought that we were going in this direction, but actually it's really important to me that this is understood and blah, blah, blah. And, I've done that with logo people too, where it's like, yep, but I want it to be a little more original. Like, can you put the syrup on here? And I'm like super picky, but in my mind, I'm not like, I'm not thinking the thought I'm being annoying. I'm thinking the thought like, this is a collaborative experience and I want them to deliver their best work. And I'm a client that can help them bring out the best in their work. Right. And you could do that same thing, but it's easier for me to come up with that thought here because I don't have to deal with the vibrations that you're dealing with in your body, because I'm totally neutral about it. So it's always easier for a coach to like come up with that thought, but doesn't mean you can't do it. You just need to kind of like get into a place where you can step into awareness. And like, usually that takes writing down the thought. Like, what is the thought that I'm having that's causing this feeling? Do like a little thought download, and you just like write like all the things and write it down. Like, I would write down what you just told me. Listen to this back. Like, oh, was it a mistake? Like, was I too ballsy? And notice too, if there's a question mark, your brain is whispering subconsciously the answer. Yes, it was a mistake. Yes, you're too ballsy. Yes, you can't trust yourself. Yeah, you're dumb. This is never going to work. Right. So it's like, it's answering it. So I'd better like choose to answer the question instead of letting my brain do that, because it's not going to give me the answers I want. Right. Your brain is such a powerful machine. So like, ask it the best questions. One of my clients said the other day in like a testimonial, she was like, I think the best thing I ever learned from you is that I've been asking my brain shitty quality questions. I don't know if I'm allowed to curse on this podcast. Bad quality questions. And I just need to ask it better questions. And when I do, my brain gives me better answers.
So like, what would be a better question, for example?
Oops, apologies. A better question would be, this isn't my house. I can't answer it.
It's okay.
Yeah. So a better question for you would kind of be like, what is the result that I do want to get out of this collaboration? And then your brain is going to go to work to figure out those things. And then when you know those things and you know what you want, you can deliver that to the people. And also a better question would be like, what's my job and what do I believe is their job in delivering these results? Because then you're not like in the drama of like your self-worth. It's more just like, it's separating out the drama from the math. It's like, what's their job? What's my job? And maybe sometimes when you ask yourself a question like that, maybe there's an answer that's written down. Maybe like you have a contract that's like, this is our job, this is your job. And you're like, oh yeah, I'm making it mean that I can't come back to them. And it says very clearly here that you can come back to us 2 times or 3 times or whatever, unlimited times. And it's fine.
How did you get into this line of work, Jess?
Yeah, process of collecting failures. I was fitness coaching was my first version of coaching. And I really found that the part that I loved in it was the mindset part of it. Was not really the nutrition or the workouts, was more like, why is someone who's never done this before able to persevere? What is their thought? And it was always, the question was like, what are you thinking that's causing you to be consistent? What are you thinking that's causing you to like feel total like shame about having to modify a move? Or when other people are modifying a move and being like, that means I'm fatiguing and I'm doing my best. Like, and it literally just got back down to like, some people just have higher quality thoughts and some people just don't have those high quality thoughts. And that's not like a state of being. You can get to that point. You can work on it. It's always something that you do. And I loved being like the backboard for those conversations to happen. And a lot of times it was just like, I was the first person to ask them these questions that I thought were like so important to be asking. And they were like, no one's ever asked me that before. And I was like, what? This is crazy. This is one of your most important goals that you're saying in your life is to lose 100 pounds. And no one's ever asked you what you're thinking when you're giving up. I don't get it. Like, I just didn't understand. So I ended up, multiple people just kept asking me, what do you charge for life coaching? And I was like, what is a life coach? I just had never even heard of it. And then by the 3rd or 4th person that had asked me, I was like, $100 an hour. I'd been fitness coaching for like 3 years. And I was like, feel like I'm in my sessions, I was talking about relationships. I had a business myself. So I felt like I could, and one of my first clients, I was able to provide her beginner level stuff that like, it was valuable to her, not nearly as valuable as what I do now. But I just found also that the people I love to work with were smart, ambitious women mostly, although recently I have been taking on male clients, but women who are business owners. I love to talk about money, and I love to talk about just how women can contribute to the world and to the economy and to their family, like livelihoods. I think it's so powerful and so important, and like, honestly, easy. I think it's so easy. And when people make it out to be hard, I'm like, there's a lot of confusion here that needs to be cleared up. And it's like, so like simple and obvious to me that I think it was just like a natural progression to become a business coach. Yeah, really fun.
I think that I don't know. I just think that it's awesome that, and I think this is what happens with so many people, is that they have a special thing, but they don't realize it. And it takes sometimes a process of elimination to get there. Or sometimes it takes someone else like shining that light on you to be like, why isn't this your thing? and then all of a sudden it's like, oh wait, I don't know. Like maybe it should be. So
yeah, my first real business coaching client was a fitness coaching client for a long time. And she was an engineer, and she was talking to me always about how she just didn't want to do that anymore. But she had all these thoughts about what her doctor and lawyer parents would think, and, how she had spent so much money and time and whatever investing in this life for herself. And she had this identity that if she gave it up to do something else, she would all of a sudden like not be an engineer anymore. And I was like, you're more than one thing. And it was like the same thing. It was the first time anyone had ever told her that she could be more than one thing. And then she was like, a flower shop is up for sale. I was like, cool. What? She had never mentioned flowers before. And literally she was like, I don't have the money. And she had a lot of I don't knows. And I was like, okay, well, that's not a productive thought. Like, what would it take? Well, I would have to take out a business loan. I don't know how to do it. Well, how do you think people figure out how to do a business? Google it and come back to me and let's see whether this is possible and how long, whatever. She was like, don't tell anyone though, because they're going to try and talk you out of it. And that was about 4 years ago. And she's 4 years into a blooming flower business. And I've been her coach ever since. And yeah, she just moved into a bigger space in COVID as all of her 2020 weddings, which was a huge amount of revenue, canceled. And we just completely changed her business in March. And she moved into a bigger space like 3 weeks ago, as all the other florists in her area are like shutting down.
So what did she do? How did she pivot?
So at first we did something called Flowers for First Responders, where we set it up as like a donation like way for her to like help her community when her shop was shut down and she like literally couldn't do anything. So she became an essential worker, and people were buying all these bouquets and donating because it was like, well, you want to do something for your community right now? Like, this is how you do it. And then she was delivering to hospitals and to grocery stores and all those things, which was really fun. And then she did online little like orb terrarium workshops, and she set up all these kits and people could curbside pick it up to do it with their kids. And she recorded a video and just like one time and rolled it out passively. And then yeah, she started doing some her standing orders had canceled. Yeah, it was kind of like one day at a time. And then starting to get back into planning elopements. So she didn't have elopements as part of her business. And all of a sudden it was like, all right, well, we're changing our offer and we're only going to offer elopements right now. And she did it really quickly when everyone else was trying to like grasp and hold on to like the other bigger weddings and wait for that to come back. And she was just like, okay, elopement package, this is how much it is. It was like a low ticket offer instead of her high ticket offer. And she just became the elopement business and for all those big weddings. And they were able to like pay a little bit more than a normal elopement would because they had a huge budget and now they didn't have to spend that money. Crazy.
I love it. I love it so much. What's the name of her business?
It's called Garden of Eden in Frisco, Colorado. So definitely go and check out Carla. She is incredible floral designer. It's like, again, like that thing, like you said, like, I can't even believe that there was a time where she wasn't doing this. It is so her calling and so amazing. So if you're listening to this being like, there's this other thing I want to do. And I know you said about working in a straight line, like there's something to be said about having your thoughts organized, which is why I do teach hard skills to my clients of scheduling. It is essential if you want to create results so that you can, it's not really about putting your to-do list on a calendar. It's about making sure that your time matches your core values, and that you're showing up in that pie chart of like what's important to you, and creating those results. And you're not just like busy for the sake of being busy.
Jess, if people want to find you and schedule a meeting, whether they have a podcast or a business or both, where should they reach out?
Yes. So you could go to my website at what'shappyning.com. So I'm going to spell it so there's no autocorrect. That's WHATSHAPPYNING.com. And you can find my podcast on there as well and subscribe through Spotify or iTunes or any of that right off of my website. Or you can connect with me on Instagram. As Christine mentioned, I'm big into the story game, and you can get to know me quite a bit through there. So I am What's Happyning, same spelling, W Jess. And you can actually book a free 20-minute mini session right through the link in my bio in my Instagram. I am really big into no strings attached. I do not really like pitch you on the call. I give you results ahead of time. So it will be just like a normal coaching session. So you can kind of see what it's about. And then if that is something that is valuable to you, great. And if you want more of it, great. And if not, like, free value. No reason not to do it.
Also, I love that because I have, worked with a lot of coaches. Well, not a ton, but a decent amount. And there are some who just like won't give you anything. They just want to sell you on something.
On like they call it like a mini session, but it's just like a pitch.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the best way that I know how to like pitch someone is to just give them results in advance. And it's
Yeah.
like, that's how they're going to know whether you are worth the investment or not, by if you show them rather than tell them in a million different ways.
Yeah. I hardcore believe in that. And I try and do the same every time I do a mini session with
Yeah,
someone.
you did for me, for sure.
Yay. So speaking of your podcast, what are your goals with your podcast? What's next for you?
Great question. And I like this couldn't have happened at a better timing for me, because I've been wanting to like realign and make the podcast more of a business building thing than a business maintenance thing. I enjoy it so much that for me, it's like, it's more a fun way for me to, I use it in a couple different ways, but one, to like highlight what's going on with my clients so other people can see like just the little wins, because I'm celebrating behind the scenes all the time, and all that's going on in our like private group coaching community or one-on-one and via text message, that I get. So I try and share some of that on Instagram, but on the podcast, it's a fun way to do that. But then also to share the tools that I coach on, like right in there. And so it's like that in itself, if you listen to the podcast, is like the half of a coaching session, right? It's just not with the context. If you really, really want the results, you got to put it into the context of applying it to your life. But the one thing that I haven't been doing is been really strategic about getting the word out about the podcast more. I mean, I've a guest podcast because other people have been asking me to show up, and then I'll do it. But I have not been that intentional with making sure that the people that need this are hearing it. So I definitely, 2021 is, it's going to be a big goal, but I think you're inspiring me to be a little bit more intentional through the end of the year in just figuring out like, okay, is this my number one thing that I drive people to? When I talk to someone and they're like, oh yeah, I have a podcast. I'm realizing recently too, that some people don't even realize, they think since the link I send them is usually my website /podcast, they think that I don't have it on iTunes, or they're confused as to like where to listen to it, or I'll give the teaser on Instagram and they don't know that they can. And I'm like, how do you not know? But I guess, right? Like people don't know. We have to just spell everything out for them. So I want to be more intentional about that, about being very clear. Like, here is the link. Go and listen. Tell your friends.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So
and also
goal.
you can also, I did this to my parents last night. We have an Alexa, or they have an Alexa in their house. And I told the Alexa to play my podcast, and it did.
Oh,
and I think my dad had a little like moment, like, whoa, I could just, instead of telling the Alexa to turn the lights on, I can say, Alexa, play Christine, play podcast coaching with Christine, and boom, there it goes. So,
oh my gosh, that's so good. Yeah. Again, with the autocorrect, I'm wondering if I've screwed myself by naming myself a podcast that isn't a word, Happyning, but we'll see. I'm going to try it out right after that. That's such a good tip.
Test it.
Thanks. See, results in advance. Look at you.
Actually, your podcast does have to be on Amazon Podcast though. So I can send you the distribution link just in case.
Yes, please
you haven't
registered
it to be on Amazon Podcast, Amazon Music. I'll share it with you, and I'll also put it in the show notes. So if anybody wants to do that as well, they can do it.
Awesome. That's really helpful.
Jess. Yay.
I live for Alexa.
Yay. Well, I know you've got to scoot. I'm trying to keep looking at my clock.
I appreciate it. Gotta go pick up the toddler from pre-K.
Yeah. Well, I hope you have a wonderful.
Sorry, the delay is just really getting us today. But thank you, so much for having me on. And I'll have to have you on the podcast soon too, so we can maybe we'll just do a live coaching session just right on the podcast. That'd be fun.
Oh, where you coach me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Are you jazzed? Are you ready for?
I'm going to be crying.
It happens.
I felt it for a second today when we were talking. I'm like, oh my God, I'm choking up. Are you at therapy?
Yeah. And I think that a lot of podcasts and therapy, it overlaps a little bit, because people just think we're talking about business. Why am I crying? And it comes up, but it's like, hello, some people will have no problem calling their business their baby, and then they're wondering why they're getting emotional about it. It's like you spend so much of your time and energy, and a lot of us, our identity and our self-worth and all of that is wrapped up in it. So it's about kind of separating out the story, the math, the drama, and getting really intentional about our thinking that ultimately creates our results. So
Yeah. Well, I'm going to
thanks for
start
giving me a
asking,
platform to share that.
yeah, better questions to my brain so that my brain can prove itself right and achieve
Mhm.
wonderful things for me.
Bingo. You're
Yeah.
welcome.